The opulent engagement party at the Sterling Ridge Country Club was supposed to be a glittering affair, a hallmark of the Beaumont family's unshakable prestige. Laughter echoed, champagne flutes chimed, and the orchestra played softly until, in a blink, the elegance fractured. From across the grand ballroom, I saw my sister-in-law, Veronica, her face a mask of rage, snatch a heavy silver ice bucket. Before anyone could react, she brought it down with sickening force on my daughter's temple. A choked scream tore from Lily's lips. Veronica raised it again, her intent chillingly clear. "My name is Catherine Kate Morrow, and I'm 38 years old. If you'd asked me 2 months ago about my life, I'd have said it was comfortably predictable, centered around my work as a curator at the Redwood Valley Historical Museum. It's a small, underfunded place, but it's where I met my husband, David, 15 years ago. The pay is modest, but the thrill of unboxing a newly donated artifact, of connecting our town to its past, that's priceless." On that crisp October afternoon, sunlight streamed through the arched windows of the museum's main exhibit hall, illuminating dust motes dancing over a display of pioneer-era quilts. The air smelled of aged wood, beeswax polish, and the faint, metallic tang of old coins. "Mrs. Morrow, which display should we focus on for the 5th grade report?" a young girl with bright, curious eyes asked. I smiled, about to suggest the Gold Rush exhibit, when my phone buzzed in my pocket. I glanced at the caller ID, David. Unusual for him to call during my workday. "Excuse me, sweetie, I need to grab this," I murmured, stepping into my small office. David's voice was tight when I answered. "Kate, your mother-in-law is insisting." "The family summit at the estate." My stomach clenched. The estate meant Beaumont Manor, the sprawling, Tudor-style mansion on Eagle Crest Road, home to matriarch Elizabeth Beaumont. Elizabeth, a doyen of Redwood Valley society and head of Beaumont Timber Corp., had made her disapproval of me, a museum girl with no significant family money, abundantly clear for 15 years. "Understood," I said, sighing. "I'll head over after I pick Lily up from school." The unease lingered. Elizabeth had always treated me with a polite, icy disdain, implying I was a gold digger who'd ensnared her precious son. Worse, she extended that same frosty treatment to our daughter, Lily. After work, I drove to Redwood Valley Middle School. Lily, my 13-year-old, was waiting near the bike racks, her auburn hair pulled back in a messy bun, a sketchbook clutched to her chest. Her face lit up when she saw my old Subaru, then clouded slightly as she registered my expression. "Mom," she asked, sliding into the passenger seat, "what's up?" I forced a smile. "Nothing major, honey. Just a quick detour before home." Lily buckled up. "Where to?" I hesitated. "Grandma Beaumont's." The sparkle vanished from her eyes. She turned to stare out the window, her fingers tightening on her sketchbook. "Oh," was all she said. I couldn't blame her. Elizabeth had never shown Lily an ounce of genuine warmth. While other grandmothers baked cookies and told stories, Elizabeth mostly offered critiques or pointed silences. She'd once remarked to David that Lily had too much of the museum dust about her. The drive to Eagle Crest Road was quiet. Beaumont Manor loomed at the end of a long, winding driveway, its ivy-covered stone walls and leaded glass windows looking imposing against the autumn sky. As we pulled up, a sleek, sapphire-blue Aston Martin was already parked in the circular drive. Veronica's car. Veronica, David's younger sister, 32, was Elizabeth's mini-me, ambitious, ruthless, and perpetually dripping in designer labels. She ran a high-end interior design firm, mostly catering to the new tech money flooding into the valley. Lily let out a small groan. "And Veronica's here too." I squeezed her hand. Deep breaths. In and out. The massive oak front door opened before I could ring. Veronica stood framed in the doorway, impeccably dressed in a Chanel suit that probably cost more than my annual salary. "Well, look what the cat dragged in," she drawled, a smirk playing on her lips. Inside, The manor was a symphony of dark wood, heavy tapestries, and ancestral portraits. In the formal drawing room, Elizabeth Beaumont sat enthroned on a velvet armchair, her silver hair perfectly coiffed, her gaze sharp. Beside her sat Geoffrey Sterling, Veronica's fiancé, a slick venture capitalist with a predatory smile. He seemed amused by the entire situation. Elizabeth's voice, cool and precise, cut through the air. "You're tardy, Catherine." I kept my composure. "I came straight from the museum, Elizabeth." She gave a dismissive wave of her hand. Yes. Your little collection of relics." David, my husband, was perched uncomfortably on the edge of a brocade sofa. He offered a weak smile to me and Lily, his hands clasped tightly. Veronica sauntered over to Geoffrey, her stiletto heels clicking on the polished parquet floor. Her perfume, something expensive and cloying, filled the room as she theatrically checked her diamond-encrusted watch. Elizabeth gestured to a mahogany box on the antique coffee table. She opened it with a flourish. Nestled on a bed of black velvet lay a breathtaking diamond Riviere necklace, its stones catching the light from the crystal chandelier, scattering rainbows across the room. "This," Elizabeth announced, her voice resonating with importance, "is the Beaumont Legacy necklace. It has been in our family for 5 generations." I could only stare. It was magnificent, easily worth a king's ransom. Veronica leaned forward, her eyes gleaming. "Appraised last month at over $500,000. Lily's eyes widened, but she remained silent beside me. Elizabeth closed the box with a decisive snap, then looked pointedly at Veronica. "As my only daughter, it will be mine to wear at my engagement party, and of course, the wedding," Veronica declared, preening. "So, that was the purpose of this summit." Geoffrey Sterling nodded, a proprietary look on his face. Elizabeth's gaze then flickered to Lily, then back to me, her expression hardening. "Ensure your child understands this is an heirloom of immense value, not a trinket to be trifled with." The implication was clear. Lily, the museum curator's daughter, couldn't be trusted near such wealth. A slow burn of anger started in my chest, but I kept my voice even. "Lily has impeccable manners. She wouldn't dream of touching anything that doesn't belong to her." Elizabeth's eyes remained cold. One would hope. I bit back a retort, instead giving Lily's hand a reassuring squeeze. David, predictably, said nothing to defend us. Veronica smirked. "Well, we'll see you both at the country club tomorrow evening. Do try to be punctual, Catherine. It's so déclassé to be late." Elizabeth dismissed us with a curt nod. As Lily and I walked back to my Subaru, the weight of the encounter settled heavily on me. I had no inkling that this necklace would soon ignite a scandal that would bring the Beaumont dynasty crashing down. The following evening, the Sterling Ridge Country Club buzzed with Redwood Valley's elite. The autumn-themed decorations were lavish, exactly Elizabeth's style. Executives from Beaumont Timber Corp., local politicians, and wealthy landowners mingled, their conversations a low hum beneath the string quartet. Lily, in a simple navy dress, looked lovely but anxious. She'd been looking forward to the party, despite her apprehension about her grandmother and aunt, but the previous day's encounter had rattled her. "Mom," she whispered, as I straightened her pearl hair clip, "it's going to be okay, right?" I managed a reassuring smile, though a knot of foreboding tightened in my stomach. "Of course, sweetie. It'll be a beautiful party," I hoped. In the main ballroom, I saw Geoffrey at the makeshift receiving line, looking dapper in his tuxedo, but his smile seemed strained, his eyes darting around. Something was amiss. Veronica, the bride-to-be, was sequestered in the club's bridal suite, fussing with her custom-made gown. Elizabeth was with her, naturally micromanaging every detail. Suddenly, a blood-curdling scream ripped through the convivial atmosphere. The music skittered to a halt. "My necklace! The Beaumont Legacy necklace is gone." It was Veronica's voice. Instantly, Elizabeth, Geoffrey, and a cluster of guests surged towards the bridal suite. David, Lily, and I hurried after them. Inside, Veronica stood before a grand, gilt-edged mirror, her face a mask of theatrical panic. Her perfectly manicured hands clawed at her throat. "The necklace!" she shrieked, whirling to face the onlookers crowding the doorway. "My diamond necklace! Someone's stolen it!" A wave of shocked murmurs spread. Elizabeth's face went ashen. "Stolen? What are you saying?" "I saw you place it on the vanity myself while you were adjusting your hair." Veronica gestured wildly to the empty velvet-lined box. "And now it's gone." The air crackled with tension. Then, Veronica's eyes, wide and accusing, landed squarely on Lily. Her expression shifted, hardening into pure malice. "That girl!" she cried, her voice trembling with feigned outrage, pointing a shaking finger at my daughter. "She did it. She took my necklace." A collective gasp went through the room. Lily looked utterly bewildered. "What? No, I didn't." "I saw her sneaking around near the suite earlier," Veronica pressed, her voice rising. "She must have slipped in when no one was looking." "That little thief stole my necklace." The whispers intensified. "A museum curator's daughter," one guest hissed. "Always the quiet ones," another added. Elizabeth stepped forward, her face a stony mask of condemnation. "Lily," she said, her voice like chips of ice, "is this true?" My heart hammered against my ribs. I pulled Lily protectively to my side. "No," Lily cried, her voice cracking. "I promise I didn't take anything, but the damage was done." Elizabeth folded her arms, a cruel satisfaction in her eyes. "It stands to reason. Those with little are often tempted by much." A white-hot fury, years in the making, surged through me. "Lily would never steal," I declared, my voice shaking but firm. "You know that, Elizabeth." But Veronica was already advancing, her face contorted. "You lying little brat," she screamed. Before I could intervene, she seized a heavy, ornate silver ice bucket from a nearby drinks trolley and swung it viciously at Lily's head. The impact was sickening. The ice bucket clanged, and Lily crumpled to the floor with a cry of agony, blood instantly welling from a gash on her temple. The room fell into a stunned, horrified silence. "Veronica!" Jeffrey yelled, his voice sharp with disbelief. David, who had stood by silently for far too long, finally erupted. His face was a mask of fury as he lunged between Veronica and Lily. "Are you insane?" he roared. "You just assaulted a child." Veronica, momentarily stunned by his outburst, recoiled. Then, someone in the crowd shouted, "Call the police." David's voice boomed, "Yes. Somebody call the police now." A shocked murmur rippled through the guests. No one had ever seen David Beaumont, Elizabeth's usually placid son, so enraged. Veronica took a step back, her bravado faltering. She's a liar. She stole it." Then a new voice, calm and cutting, sliced through the chaos. "No, she didn't." All eyes turned to Jeffrey Sterling. He stood, jaw tight, an expression of utter disgust on his face. "Veronica, stop this charade," he said coldly. "We both know what truly happened." Veronica's face crumpled. "What?" "Jeffrey, darling, what are you saying?" Jeffrey addressed the stunned onlookers, his voice ringing with conviction. "I wasn't going to expose this. I had hoped to deal with it privately. But after what you just did, Veronica, after you physically attacked a child, you deserve no such courtesy." The room was deathly quiet. Jeffrey reached into his tuxedo jacket and produced his phone. He tapped the screen, then held it up. "This is what happened." He pressed play. A video started security footage from a discreet camera in the hallway outside the bridal suite, angled to catch the doorway. It showed Veronica, looking furtively over her shoulder, then quickly slipping the Beaumont Legacy necklace into her own expensive Hermes handbag, which she then tucked under a pile of gift bags. Gasps and exclamations filled the room. Elizabeth's face was a ghastly white. Jeffrey let the video play a few moments longer, showing Veronica re-entering the suite, Then a few minutes later, her dramatic discovery of the theft. He stopped the video. Veronica staged the theft of her own necklace, Jeffrey announced, his voice laced with contempt. She intended to file an insurance claim for the $500,000 value. She's been hemorrhaging money from her design firm, desperate to maintain her lifestyle, and cooked up this despicable plan. A stunned silence descended. Veronica's mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. Elizabeth slowly turned to her daughter, her expression unreadable. You fabricated this?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Veronica shook her head frantically. "No. That video, it's doctored. Jeffrey, you're my fiancé. You're supposed to protect me." Jeffrey laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "I was, until you revealed yourself to be a monster." Veronica's face twisted with fury. That little urchin must have. David had heard enough. "You framed my daughter," he snarled, stepping towards her. "You assaulted my daughter. And you expect anyone to believe your pathetic lies now?" He pulled out his own phone and dialed 911. "Yes, I need to report an assault and a major fraud in progress at the Sterling Ridge Country Club," he stated firmly. "We have video evidence." Veronica stumbled back, genuine panic finally dawning. "Mother," she implored, looking at Elizabeth. "You won't let them do this to me." Elizabeth didn't answer. She stared at Veronica, her lips pressed into a thin, white line. For the first time, Elizabeth Beaumont looked utterly defeated. The wail of sirens grew louder. Veronica gasped. "No. No, no." Two uniformed officers entered the suite, their expressions grim. One, a stern-faced woman with a name tag reading Sergeant Ramirez, addressed Veronica. "Ms. Veronica Beaumont?" Veronica froze. "You are under arrest for assault with a deadly weapon, filing a false police report, and attempted insurance fraud." The room erupted. Elizabeth let out a strangled sound, but made no move to intervene. The second officer produced handcuffs. Veronica's knees seemed to buckle. "No, you can't." Jeffrey, please." Jeffrey simply turned his back. Sergeant Ramirez cuffed Veronica's wrists. "You have the right to remain silent," she began. Veronica started to scream, a raw, animalistic sound. "No, this isn't happening. I'm a Beaumont." But her protests were ignored as the officers escorted her from the room, her shrieks echoing down the club's elegant hallways before finally fading. Just like that, the golden daughter of the Beaumont dynasty was gone. As the police led Veronica away, the stunned guests began to whisper, their eyes darting towards Elizabeth Beaumont, the formidable matriarch, now standing utterly exposed. I knelt beside Lily, dabbing at the cut on her forehead with a napkin. My heart still thudded a frantic rhythm. Lily clung to me, shaken but incredibly brave, while David kept a protective hand on her shoulder. Elizabeth hadn't moved. Her regal posture was still intact, but her face was a frozen mask. For decades, she had orchestrated every aspect of her family's life and public image. In a few short minutes, it had all come undone. Jeffrey Sterling broke the silence. "Elizabeth," he said, his voice devoid of its earlier deference, "were you aware of Veronica's scheme?" Elizabeth blinked, as if surfacing from a great depth. "Certainly not," she murmured, but her voice lacked its usual steely conviction. Jeffrey's laugh was short and cynical. "I find that hard to believe." A fresh wave of murmurs swept the room. David stepped forward, his voice firm, a tone I'd rarely heard him use with his mother. "Mom, did you know what Veronica was planning?" Elizabeth looked at her son, and for a fleeting moment, her composure cracked. A flicker of something, guilt, fear, crossed her face. It was enough. She had known. Perhaps not the assault, but certainly the fraudulent scheme. Gasps rippled through the onlookers. "You were going to let my daughter take the blame for this?" I asked, my voice quiet but filled with a cold fury. Elizabeth's fingers twitched, but she remained silent. "You were going to let a 13-year-old girl be publicly humiliated branded a thief, I pressed, my voice rising, all to protect Veronica's greed and your precious family name? Elizabeth drew herself up, a semblance of her old arrogance returning. The Beaumont reputation is paramount. My breath hitched. That was her answer. We were never family to her, just components in her grand performance of respectability. David's jaw tightened. I'm done, Mother, he said, his voice cutting. I want nothing more to do with you or this toxic legacy. Elizabeth's eyes widened almost imperceptibly. You don't mean that, David. I do, he said, his voice like flint. This ends tonight. As far as I'm concerned, you are no longer my mother. Elizabeth inhaled sharply, but for once, she was speechless. Then, as if on cue, Sergeant Ramirez's police radio crackled. Sergeant, we've just had a call from the DA's office. They're fast-tracking the fraud investigation. And we have a warrant out for an Elizabeth Beaumont in connection to an ongoing investigation into Beaumont Timber Corporation allegations of embezzlement and tax evasion. Advise we bring her in for questioning. The entire room seemed to suck in a collective breath. Elizabeth's head snapped up, her face draining of all remaining color. No, she whispered, her voice finally cracking. Sergeant Ramirez stepped towards her. Elizabeth Beaumont, you are also under investigation for conspiracy to commit fraud, obstruction of justice, and significant financial irregularities at Beaumont Timber. You'll need to accompany us to the station. The whispers turned into a roar. Elizabeth Beaumont, the untouchable queen of Redwood Valley, was falling. She staggered, as if the full weight of her crumbling empire had just landed on her. This is preposterous, she stammered, her voice hollow. I am Elizabeth Beaumont. I will not be. The sergeant didn't wait. She and her partner gently but firmly took Elizabeth by the arms. Elizabeth didn't scream like Veronica. She simply stared ahead, her hands trembling as they led her away. Her gaze met mine for a brief, chilling moment. For the first time in 15 years, I saw genuine fear in Elizabeth Beaumont's eyes. Then she, too, was gone. In the days that followed, Redwood Valley was consumed by the Beaumont scandal. Headlines screamed from the front page of the Redwood Valley Chronicle and buzzed across social media. Beaumont dynasty implodes, mother and daughter arrested in shocking fraud and assault case, $500,000 necklace scheme unravels society family. Teenager framed and attacked, justice demanded. Those who had once courted Elizabeth and Veronica now scrambled to distance themselves. The Beaumont name, once a byword for wealth and influence, became synonymous with deceit and disgrace. Beaumont Timber Corp's stock plummeted. The day of the trials arrived. Walking into the Redwood County Courthouse, I felt a strange mix of trepidation and resolve. This was the culmination. The courtroom was packed. Reporters scribbled furiously, former Beaumont associates whispered in hushed tones, and curious townspeople filled the public gallery. Elizabeth and Veronica sat at the defendant's table, their former arrogance replaced by a weary resignation. Veronica looked disheveled, dark circles under her eyes, her designer clothes looking out of place. Elizabeth sat ramrod straight, a marble statue of defiance, but the strain was visible. I sat with David, who held my hand tightly. Lily squeezed mine on her other side, her small hand surprisingly firm. You okay, sweet pea? I whispered. She nodded, a determined glint in her eyes. Today, her truth would be fully validated. The judge entered. The prosecutor methodically laid out the case against Veronica, the security footage, Jeffrey Sterling's damning testimony, the evidence of her dire financial situation, the insurance claim she'd been preparing to file. The video of her attacking Lily caused an audible gasp in the courtroom. Lily flinched beside me, and I put my arm around her. Veronica stared at the table, her face burning with shame. The judge addressed Veronica. Do you have anything to say before sentencing, Ms. Beaumont? Veronica sprang to her feet, her voice shrill. This is an outrage. A miscarriage of justice. I'm a Beaumont. I can't go to prison. The courtroom was silent. She still didn't get it. The judge, unmoved, delivered the sentence. Veronica Beaumont was sentenced to 7 years in state prison for assault with a deadly weapon, attempted grand larceny by fraud, and filing a false police report. She was fined $750,000, with a significant portion awarded to Lily for damages. Her assets were frozen, her design firm declared bankrupt. As bailiffs approached, Veronica's composure shattered. "You can't do this," she shrieked, clawing at the air. "Mother, do something." Elizabeth didn't even glance her way. Veronica's screams echoed as she was led away. Then, it was Elizabeth's turn. The prosecution detailed not only her complicity in the necklace scheme, but also years of systematic embezzlement from Beaumont Timber Corp. And elaborate tax evasion schemes. A former CFO of Beaumont Timber, now a whistleblower, provided irrefutable evidence of offshore accounts and falsified records. The judge asked Elizabeth if she had any final words. I expected a plea, perhaps a shred of remorse. Instead, Elizabeth Beaumont lifted her chin. I regret nothing that I did to build and protect my family's legacy. A murmur of disbelief ran through the court. The judge sighed, then delivered the verdict: 10 years in federal prison for multiple counts of fraud, embezzlement, and tax evasion. Beaumont Manor and all other personal assets were seized. Her bank accounts stripped bare. Unlike her daughter, Elizabeth didn't scream. She rose, smoothed her expensive silk blouse, and walked out of the courtroom flanked by marshals, her head held high, a queen dethroned but unbowed to the very end. It was finally, truly over. As we walked out of the courthouse into the bright California sunshine, Lily looked up at me, a small, tentative smile on her face. "Mom, is it really done?" I kissed the top of her head. "Yes, my brave girl. It's done." David took a deep, shuddering breath, a profound relief settling over his features. "No more Beaumonts," he said softly. "No more shadows." I looked at my husband and my daughter, my real family. We were free. A month later, life had found a new, quieter rhythm. Lily was thriving, her sketchbook filled with vibrant drawings, her laughter echoing through our small house. David, liberated from his mother's oppressive influence, was more present, more engaged than I'd ever seen him. And I returned to my beloved Redwood Valley Historical Museum. One sunny afternoon, I was cataloging a new donation of pioneer photographs when a group of schoolchildren clustered around me. "Mrs. Morrow! Mrs. Morrow!" I turned, smiling. "What can I do for you, young historians?" Lily stood with them, her eyes shining. "Mom, can I tell them about the Truth Window display today?" she asked, referring to a small exhibit we'd recently created about local historical figures who'd stood up for what was right, even when it was difficult. I looked at my daughter, strong, resilient, and full of grace. "Of course, sweetheart," I said, stepping back. "The floor is yours." Lily took a deep breath, then turned to the children, her voice clear and confident as she began to speak. Sunlight poured through the old museum windows, bathing the room in a warm, golden light. The Beaumont facade had shattered, but in its place, something genuine and far more precious had begun to grow. This was our new beginning.